back to Holistic Healthline, your direct line to good health.
Baby loves me, yes, yes she does. All the girls out of sight, yeah.
And welcome to Holistic Healthline, your direct line to great health. The flu is running rampant still. It's been devastating to many families, and we're decided we wanted to bring in an expert to help us navigate the rest of this flu season. And our guest is naturopathic Dr. Kate Rheaume-Bleue, a graduate and former faculty member of the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine. Dr. Kate lectures internationally on many topics related to health and wellness and is a frequent guest on radio and television across North America. She is the author of the best-selling book Vitamin K2 and the Calcium Paradox, How a Little-Known Vitamin Could Save Your Life. Welcome, Dr. Kate.
Good morning. Thank you. Glad to be here.
You're here to the rescue. Thank you.
Dr. Kate, we've been talking over the past month and a half about this flu across the United States. I don't know how much you got up there in Canada, but
yep, we've got it too.
It's the flu shot is not very effective, and everybody's kind of panicking. What can we do? What can we do? So tell us, what can we do?
Yeah, so this happens, right? The flu naturally follows this variation where some years are worse than others, and every now and then you have a peak year, and this happens to be one of those years. And it's also, you're right, that this particular strain of the flu that seems to be most problematic was missing from the shot this year. So, but that is no reason to panic, because the fact is that just means that we have to rely more so on our own natural disease-fighting and virus-fighting processes, which are there, and there are ways to support them and make them work better and make them work as well as possible. Of course, there's basic common sense things we know, like hand washing actually really makes a difference with the transmission of these kinds of bugs, and getting proper sleep and getting proper exercise. But there's also special herbs. Mother Nature, for example, has provided us with some botanical medicines that help make our immune system, specifically the white blood cells that help protect us against these kinds of bugs, help them work better. And so that's a really important and powerful thing to be able to do, a combination, for example, like the anti-V, to help our immune system work better to protect us against these bugs.
Anti-V, which stands for antivirus, are these just specifically ingredients to kill viruses, or like, say, boost our own immune system?
Yeah, that's exactly what it does. It helps to activate our immune system. So, of course, our first line of defense against these kinds of viruses that cause the flu, but as well as the common cold. The reason why we say there's no cure for the common cold is that there are so many different viruses that can cause it, 200 different ones going around at any given time. And so we can't develop immunity to all of those, but our first line of defense are these white blood cells that have names like natural killer cells, for example, that will recognize and kill these viruses as they're coming into the body. And there are things we can do to make those cells work better. For example, a patented extract of Echinacea that is standardized to the 3 active ingredients of Echinacea, and it's fresh extracted. That's really important when it comes to Echinacea. Has absolutely been shown to help increase the number and activity, the vigilance, you could say, of these white blood cells that will recognize and attack and kill these invading viruses.
And then, again, the AntiV formula made by Natural Factors, we've been using for a long time in our practice, both personally as well for our patients and customers that come into our facility. And now, does it also potentially help directly kill off viruses?
Well, definitely. So what happens is, like I said, some of these cells, some of these white blood cells in our system are called natural killer cells, and so they literally will recognize and kill these viruses as they're coming into the body. And so that's one way they work. They will also, some of the other cells of the immune system will produce compounds that then help to reduce or combat the viruses. That's another way that those will work. Macrophages is another term. They'll eat up the viruses. So there's lots of different mechanisms they have for dealing with different types of viruses coming into the body.
What's for our listeners, I think they sometimes get a little confused between a bacteria and a virus, and when their child gets sick or they get sick, they just run to the doctor insisting on an antibiotic.
Yes, that's so common, and unfortunately, all too often they may get one even though it's completely ineffective. The vast majority of the illnesses that and the microorganisms that make us sick in the wintertime are viruses. And so antibiotics are of no effect whatsoever on those. And but some people just want something, and sometimes they'll get a script even though that's really not useful. When bacteria do come into play, it's often a secondary infection, more often than not. But again, the foundation of what's making us sick is really viruses, and so this is where we have to mobilize our own body's defenses. So combinations like the echinamide standardized extract of Echinacea and other ingredients like LeMay Ksham, astragalus, reishi, all of these are found in the anti-V to help our bodies help itself and boost these defenses.
You mentioned LeMay Ksham. A lot of people know, they've heard of Echinacea and they've heard of astragalus and they've heard of, the different mushrooms, the reishi mushroom and maitake and shiitake. But a lot of people haven't heard of LeMay Ksham. What exactly is LeMay Ksham?
You're right. I'm glad you asked about that because it is not as well known a herb as the other ones. It is actually one herb that has its traditions and its roots, if you will, in North American traditional medicine and native North America. And it is one that seems to also be especially helpful for certain types of rotavirus, for example, which is often like a tummy bug, and there's lots of stomach flu going around this year, or what we'll call stomach flu. It's not technically influenza, but a lot of people complaining of sore throat and upset stomachs, and so there are bugs that seem to be affecting the gastrointestinal system, and LeMay Ksham seems to be helpful in that regard.
So basically with the AntiV formula, you're targeting a lot of different areas and not just like a lot of people tend to think of, just respiratory.
Right, that's exactly right. We do tend to think of respiratory, and this year in particular, again, there seems to be this combination of respiratory and gastrointestinal things going around. It's a little bit unusual. And so, exactly right, with the anti-V, you've got a broad spectrum of different herbs that work in different ways for different types of viruses.
Are there any, as a naturopath, we kind of, look at all the different approaches we can take. Are there just like basic foods that are better when we are dealing with these viruses?
For sure there are. I mean, definitely avoiding sugar is so important because sugar will simply depress the number and activity of our white blood cells. And so that's important. You want to stay well hydrated. And to be honest, bone broths are a great way to stay hydrated. They provide electrolytes as well as they're naturally high in the amino acid cysteine, which will help have some mucolytic or helping to break down mucus. That's a helpful property. That there's is a good reason that's a traditional remedy for when we feel sick is good old-fashioned chicken soup, and there's science behind that. So that is important as well. And to the extent that you can, that your tummy can handle it, trying to get as much of the colorful fruits and vegetables, especially the yellow ones with the carotenoids, that does good things for our immune system too.
And with the anti-V, again, by natural factors, is there a dosage level that you have been suggesting to your patients?
Mm-hmm. So the anti-V comes in a liquid as well as a soft gel. I really like the liquid because it is strong, and there will be a certain amount of contact with, if you happen to have something stuck, in the back of your nose and throat, then that will have some direct contact there. The soft gels are, of course, great for travel, and this is such an important thing to have when you're traveling, so there's advantages to both. There's a prevention, so preventatively, the dose would be 1 to 2 drops, say in a water bottle, this is something I'll use with kids, or 1 dropper full for adults per day. But if you think you're coming down with something, or people around you are coming down, you got that tickling in your throat, whatever it is, then you want to boost that up to 2 to 3 droppers per day, or 2 to 3 of those soft gels per day, and that is more of a dosage for a treatment, or when you've got those first signs of a symptom.
Dr. Kate, we got to take a quick break, and when we get back, again, there are a lot of respiratory, and it seems to be that's kind of the deadly end of what's going on, developing pneumonia and this excessive congestion that goes on in the lungs and in the sinuses. When we get back, I want to talk a little bit about that and what can we do about it. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Holistic Healthline, your direct line to great health. Back in a moment.
Now back to Holistic Healthline, your direct line to good health.
And welcome back to Holistic Healthline. And our guest is author and naturopathic Dr. Kate Rheaume-Bleue. And she's helping us navigate this flu season. Dr. Kate, I can't tell you the number of people who have come into our office who are saying that they've got this congestion. They had the flu. They've had it for weeks. It just doesn't, they're kind of over the major portion of it, but now they've got this stuff stuck in their lungs and they can't seem to get rid of it. They're on all sorts of medications and it's still not going away.
Yes, this seems to be a feature this year. We saw this a little bit at the end of last cold and flu season. Now it seems to be back with a vengeance, and you're right, everybody's got this. And that, or sometimes we're still seeing the post-viral cough, which is so annoying after you think you're better, but the cough won't stop. So both of those things can be really improved with a number of natural ingredients. The lung, bronchial, and sinus health formula is one that I love specifically for this reason. It contains tested herbs and nutrients that help soothe irritated airways, thin mucus, loosen phlegm to help improve breathing and calm coughs. And it's a non-drowsy formula which can help enhance lung and bronchial function as well as support sinus health. So I really like this for the soothing effect that it has. We're looking at ingredients like, things that you'd expect for cough, like mullein and wild cherry bark and horehound, but also ones that help to break up that mucus and congestion, like bromelain and N-acetylcysteine.
And when you say soothe, you're talking about that nagging tickle that just doesn't, or the itch that doesn't want to go away.
Yes, exactly. And sometimes that is from a postnasal drip, and so dealing with the mucus and helping to clear that up can help with that crazy tickle. That's something, as well as if it's kind of gone into the sinuses. Bromelain in particular is really great for helping to deal, and there's lots of research behind it for support for sinus health and to help with that sinus irritation.
So this is kind of more of a balancing type of formula rather than you get people pick up decongestants and that kind of thing, just trying to dry everything up. This is kind of...
Exactly. Instead of just drying everything up, in other words, stopping the body's natural process, which is trying to rid itself of the bug, you can help to break up the mucus that's been produced and thin it out so it still can do its job in helping to remove the viruses and clear the body of the pathogens that it's trying to deal with.
Would this also be helpful for people who tend to have asthma, that have mucus-producing asthma?
Yeah, exactly. So I've seen it work really well for that kind of condition, chronic sort of obstructive chest conditions, when we see like chronic congestion in the chest. I really like it for that as well. But you're absolutely right. There are a lot of bugs going around now that seem to just last with this congestion forever, and this is a great choice with that. And a lot of people seem to be being prescribed or running to their inhalers, which the steroid inhalers, yes, they help the situation. Can this be used in addition to those inhalers and potentially even
decrease the need for them?
Absolutely, yes. It has no interaction with the inhaler. The mechanisms are quite different, and you're right. I find that those are being prescribed much more so now, more readily, and far quicker, I think, than they used to or we really should be. And this is something that can be used, and people will find when this kicks in, which doesn't take very long, and that mucus starts to thin down and the sinus congestion improves, that, you're right, you'll be reaching for that inhaler less often.
Safe for school-age children, for instance?
Yeah, now it is absolutely safe for school-age kids, although this particular formula comes in tablets, which may not be the easiest for them to swallow, but you could still break them up or crush them up and take them that way, mix them into food, and it would still be effective.
And again, it's Natural Factors is the company that makes both the AntiV liquid and capsules, as well as the lung, bronchial, and sinus formula. Is there a number or website that people can find out more information?
Absolutely. They can go to www.naturalfactors.com for more information on the products that they mentioned. And if they want to reach me, they can reach me at www.drkateND for naturopathicdoctor.com.
Cool. Do you have any other advice for people, this time of year to try and, let's tone down the panic and let's see what we can do to arm ourselves to, lifestyle changes, whatever. Any other advice that you'd like to give our audience?
Toning down the panic is a really good advice in and of itself, just reducing the stress around this, because it's a bad year for sure, but this is part of a natural seasonal variation that we see from year to year, and that the same common sense things that I mentioned before really do make a difference. The hand washing, getting good sleep, it's critical, and getting moderate exercise and avoiding sugar, all of those basic things, as well as I would say probiotics on a daily basis have absolutely been shown to reduce the incidence of cold and flu and the number of days missed from work and school for those kinds of conditions. So all of these basic common sense things are more important now than ever.
And as you stated when we started the interview, our immune systems are designed to protect us from things like this. Mm-hmm. So we shouldn't, again, go back to the panic of, oh my God, what am I going to do? Well, your body's going to do that for you. That's what it's designed for.
So
yep, that's exactly right.
It just needs a little help every now and then, right?
Yep, that's right. And there's sure things that we can do to make our immune system less effective, so we can do less of those and more of the things that help make it work better.
And can people use the AntiV and the lung, bronchial, sinus formula together? Can they use them conjunctively?
They absolutely can use them conjunctively. Typically, they're different herbs with different mechanisms that do different things, and so they could be taken concurrently. There's no problem with that. Typically, I find the AntiV is more effective before or at the early onset of whatever cold or flu you happen to be dealing with, and the lung, bronchial, and sinus formula typically comes into the picture a little bit later on when those symptoms have gotten a hold. But if you need to or wanted to for whatever reason, you could take them together.
Well, we want to thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope to talk to you again soon. And it was a delight learning all this information. I'm sure our audience really appreciated it.
Thank you very much. Take care.
You too.